Oh, and then the lobby is nice. And Mickey, our tour guide.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mickey.
How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
Good night sleep?
Oh my gosh.
We did. So, Mickey, this is the old part of Jerusalem?
The old part of Jerusalem, but not the ancient.
Okay.
This is the Armenian quarter. So today small domination, but in Jerusalem they are very prominent.
So, a lot of narrow roads here.
This is a wide road,
Yeah.
but it's one way and only with a permit you can go into those. The bar mitzvah of this young boy down there, a little boy down there. We are now on the western side, western wall, also known as the Wailing Wall,
Yes.
which is the western wall of Temple Mount. 2,000 years ago, it's the western wall of the temple. So we saw now Bar Mitzvah coming to the western wall. 2,000 years ago, when Jesus was 12, he came to the temple, which was up there, to celebrate his Bar Mitzvah and debating with the priest, not the rabbi, but with the priest.
What's the difference between a rabbi and a priest?
We don't have any priest anymore.
Yeah, at the time.
So priests were only at the temple, the people who are responsible to the work, the holy work in the temple. There were 24 families of priests, and they were rotating between them, coming back and forth to do their work. And there was a high priest, which was always, there was one high priest, and always his eldest son was inherited the position of high priest.
And what did the high priest do?
High priest is the highest, is responsible for all the other priests, and on Day of Atonement, he and only he, once a year, will go into the Holy of Holiest, which is in a room inside the temple that no one visited, no one was allowed to go in. The high priest was allowed to go in only once a year, in Day of Atonement, so he would go in. Actually, they would put a rope around him, so if something happened to him while he is there, no one allowed to go in. They can actually
Pull him out.
And he would do a very short prayer. It was Day of Atonement. It's God, please this be a year full of rain, that everybody will be able to provide their families. Let there be peace, and the final part, let all women don't have miscarriage. The basis of the platform is from 2,000 years ago.
Okay.
So again, those parts is something that when Jesus came here to the temple,
It already existed.
he didn't remember, but when he was a month old, when he was Bar Mitzvah, 12 years old, and then when he came here on the last week. So he comes to the temple. Now, why is the western wall is so important? Because yesterday we saw from Mount Olive the eastern wall, and it's standing and it's still there. And we also saw yesterday the southern wall where they go in and out during that time. So why is that so important? This is the most important because the platform itself is not completely
Rectangle?
rectangle. It's a bit of
Trapezoid?
Yeah. And the Holy of Holiest, the Dome of the Rock, this is the Holy of Holiest, is a bit closer to the western wall.
Okay.
So if you pray here, you're closer to the Holy of Holiness, not like in other walls. And this is why this wall became so important. Another reason is that there is tradition that when Herod rebuilt the temple, the same temple that Jesus visited, so he was a very good tax collector, and he collected tax, but the poorest of the poor could not afford the taxes. So they came to Herod and say, we want to contribute to build the temple as well, and we will contribute by coming work. So the poorest of the poor came to work, and they built the western wall of the temple, which does not exist. But this spirit of devotion stayed on the concept of the western wall. So when the temple is not here, move to the western wall of the platform. So there is tradition that between here and the Church of the Holy Sepulcher, which all built on the same
wall.
wall.
So there's unification between the church and the wall.
And this is Axis Mundi, the axis of the world.
Okay.
From here, the divine presence is higher than in other places. And remember, people, Christian and Jewish, all over the world, when they are praying facing Jerusalem. Facing usually east, facing Jerusalem. So when you put a note here, you're leaving a note in the place where the divine presence is here, is dwelling here, is stronger here.
Well, we're going to the Wailing Wall. There's a men's side and a woman's side, and Deb is going to the woman's side.
November 25th, 2021. We're at the Western Wall. Just said my prayer. Inserted a little prayer and a piece of paper onto the wall. The men and women are separated, so Herb's on the other side of the partition. Hey, and by the way, happy Thanksgiving.
We're going to touch the Wailing Wall and put in our special note to God to get divine sharing, support, a bar mitzvah. This is a good day for bar mitzvah. So how old is a person to become bar mitzvah?
13.
13.
So here they have all these communication devices. It's the morning prayer of bar mitzvah, everybody puts it.
Uh-huh.
Now I will stop
I wanna-
here, so you will take your time.
Yeah.
So what do you want? Okay, I want to
Oh, there's the scroll, yeah.
So the 5 first books.
Now, are the scrolls always in scroll form or are they in book form too?
It's the 5 first books of the Torah.
Okay.
So in the synagogue and in bar mitzvah, you read them from the
Scroll.
In my book, it's also there.
Yeah.
It's the 5 scroll. But when you read them as bar mitzvah,
Well, this is tradition.
and it's actually writing is a skill. You have to be a real professional skill.
Oh, so that's handwritten.
Handwritten, the same with the tefillin, inside parchment which is handwritten,
Yeah.
and the same for the mezuzah on the doors. And on Shabbat, on Saturday in synagogue, there's a whole ceremony of taking it out, reading it, and the same here for the bar mitzvah. They will bring them and you read from the. So it's really interesting because this tradition will continue as we move everything to do on computers. There will always be some Jewish people who will do writing.
Sure.
Was there. King David.
The temple was up there in the corner?
No, on the whole side.
Oh, on the whole?
I'll show you the picture later. And King David wanted to build the temple, but God told him, no, you are a man of war. Solomon, your son, will build the temple. But David had a special chord. He played a special chord that pleased the Lord. What was the chord? Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
That's nice.
Yeah, we sing that. We sing that.
Yeah, everybody sings. Hallelujah is praise the Lord.
Yeah.
And David did play the harp. And was written, according to tradition, he was written in Psalms, which is book of songs. And playing the harp. So it's not Leonard Cohen that invented Hallelujah. Remember, 2,000 years ago.
So this is a good place to see the magnitude of the height of the wall.
Down there, those people are working. This is the original street. 2,000 years ago, people walked and they visited the temple, and it was all the way up there.
And the Temple Mount was up there.
So Temple Mount, the platform is all the way to here.
Okay.
And this is the wall. We saw the other side of this wall, the southern part, where people went into the temple and came out. Now let me show you. Now this is also holy place for Muslims, and on top of Temple Mount today the people who are responsible to manage it are the Muslim Waqf. So up there it's the Muslim Waqf. It's not the Jewish rabbinate system, and they are very strict in terms of the behavior of the guests. And they also, this is why I asked about holy books, they also ask that there will be no holy books coming up there unless it is Quran. So go through another security. This will be more strict security.
Okay.
But you can take picture of it. It's okay.
Good. So this is what the temple looked like. So the fellows ahead of us are being escorted by the police, the Jewish police, so they do not say any non-Muslim prayers. So any prayer that's not Muslim cannot be said here.
זה בסדר או שיש לך... You need, they will give you something to put around you.
A skirt.
You look very appropriate.
I do.
You know, no holding hands. No holding hands.
It was that way in Dubai.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we know.
As you said, my pleasure.
We got the word before we went to Dubai.
In the Quran, Jerusalem is not mentioned. There's in the chapter 17 of the Quran, it says, "Thank you, Lord, for taking the prophet from the main mosque, Mecca, to the mosque at the edge of the world. At the edge, not the edge of the world, at the edge. In Arabic, the edge, Katse, Al-Aqsa. So this is Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is the Quran, and then the story of the life of Muhammad, which is the Sharia law is based on the Quran and the Hadith, which are the stories of the life of Muhammad, gathered from many sources and rated by how strong the source is. if it's Abu Omar, the second Caliph told, which was disciple of Muhammad, told the story, it's a strong one. If someone said, I heard it from my cousin, who heard it from his cousin, who knew Muhammad, it's a weak. But the hadith tell the story that Muhammad flew here on a magic horse with wings during this night journey. He came to the rock and he went up to meet Almighty. And on the way he met all the prophets, Adam and Eve, Moses, Abraham, Isa. Isa is Jesus. So he met all of them. And when he met the Almighty, he came down with the prayers. And then Moses tells him, how many prayers do you have? And he says 50. Moses looks at him and says, 50? We Jews have 3 and we can't manage it. You have to go up and negotiate. No way you will. So Muhammad goes up again, negotiate, comes down back. Moses asks him, how many prayers do you have? He says 5. He said, 5? I told you we don't manage 3. You have to go up again. Muhammad says, I did my best. This is as far as I can negotiate. And since then, Muslims have 5 prayers. Since then, Muslim, and truly, part of the tradition is to negotiate. We negotiate because if Muhammad could negotiate, why can't we negotiate? So this happened on the dome, on the rock. He went up on the rock, which the dome of the rock on it. So this is not a mosque, this is the dome of the rock. When the Muslim came here a few years later, 638, the Muslim arrived here. The second Caliph, Omar, he said, I need to build a mosque here. And he built the Al-Aqsa Mosque. He built it southern to the Dome of the Rock. So when they pray facing Mecca and not the Dome of the Rock, which is also holy for Jews. So for us, the holiest is Mecca. So we build the mosque to Mecca, we pray to Mecca. But the fourth Caliph after him came and built the Dome of the Rock, and so this is the third holiest site for Muslims. So we are on arches. There is actually, the mosque is also below us because King Herod's, so the rock is there, the bedrock of the mountain, but the mountain goes like this. So here Herod's built arches to build the platform. And the mosque is built on top of those
Arches?
Yeah. So every time there's an earthquake, the arches shake and the structure fall, although those arches are from Crusader time, from 1,000 years ago, and they are still here. Crusader came here, and then the monks came here. And the monks say, we have to protect ourselves. So they got permission from the Pope to protect themselves and to be people of God, priests, monks, and to hold sword. One of those orders, there were 4 orders like this, one of those orders had his headquarters here. The Order of the Templars, which is the order of the priest of the protector of the Temple of Solomon. In short, the Templars.
So this structure was built when?
They completed the structure by 705. Beautiful. There is one mistake here. I challenge you to find it. One mistake is only make something small, imperfect, because only God is perfect.
What did they make?
Well, no one knows. But we know there is one mistake. In Islam, no image and pictures. The guy who built it.
Who built it?
Abdel Malik.
Abdel Malik. So this is the bedrock of the earth when God said, let there be earth.
From this, everything was created. According to tradition, it's not in the books. You see this building, the tower and the whole structure close to it. So Herod, when he rebuilt the temple, he wanted to be able to guard what's going on here. So he built a fortress on the edge of the platform. When he did it, it was still Mark Antony rule. Remember, then Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and then Augustus came. But when he built this, he's still under Mark Antony rule. So how does he call it? The Antonia.
So this is the first station of the cross. This is the trial.
This is the trial. If you stand here, yesterday Last Supper will definitely be Last Supper. It's a big complex, higher than what we see now.
Oh, before it was a fortress,
yes.
higher and bigger than what it is now.
And remember, 2,000 years of conquers and earthquakes, and so it's low. The street level during that time is even lower.
Okay.
So the lower street, the higher it is. It is a formidable fortress. Also seats and he tried Jesus, he tried Rabbi, and he tried the two other thieves.
Both ways, sir.
Let's go and here. You should enjoy. Who should I release? And everybody behold this man.
Barabbas.
Barabbas,
Yeah.
and echo homo, this man, echo hold this man, echo homo.
Crucified him.
Happening here, and then Jesus is being taken and mocked by the soldiers and being whipped.
All in this courtyard?
So this is somewhere here in this courtyard. This small church.
So this church was built by Antonio Barluzzi, the person that built the church on the Sermon of the Mount.
Gethsemane,
Uh-huh.
the Church of All Nations.
And what year was it?
So this is around the 30s.
Oh, okay.
So
1930.
yeah, here it says 1929.
Okay.
So the first one is the Gethsemane, and then he builds this, and then he builds the Sermon on the Mount. He built a few other churches here in Israel.
I like it.
So, and station number 2.
But this is
Now, what is station number 2?
So, flagellation,
Oh,
and they gave him the
crown of thorns.
crown of thorns and the cross. The governor sergeant took Jesus into a praetorium and gathered the whole company of soldiers around him. They stripped him, put a scarlet robe around him, and twisted together a crown of thorn and set on his head and put stuff on. Hail King, the King of the Jews. So there are 4 versions. In one version they flagged him as well. Now you have to understand, flagellation is not something like that.
It's rip your back.
They take a very narrow bench, they put it in water, and they whip you. And it goes all the way into your flesh, and
Through your skin.
it's so painful. You can't imagine how painful it is. And only then you have to start carrying the cross.
Wow. So this is the second station of the cross. Station number 2.
The flagellation,
Receiving his cross.
He's receiving the cross.
went to.
Okay, where's the Wailing Wall? Okay.
So the fortress of the Antonia, first station. And below the fortress, I told you the streets were low. So now we'll go down to the street level, lithostratus, the level of the street, the stone level of the time of Christ, which will give you this perspective of we are walking on his footsteps, but it was a bit different in terms of the geography, height. The city was destroyed, rebuilt, more than once since that time.
Boy, we're really going into some catacombs here.
So, when Pilate heard those words, he brought Jesus and sat down on the judgment seat in a place called the lithostratus, in Hebrew, Gabbatha. This This is all new. This is actually part of what we see is 19th, 20th century, beginning of 20th century structure above us. So this was open air market close to the Antonia. And we know it was market because we have the symbol of, there is an arch outside, I will show you part of it, that shows, that symbolizes the market.
And this is the level when Jesus was living,
Yeah.
or when Jesus was on earth.
And probably walked through here because he made miracles in different places of Jerusalem. One is not far from here. You have to go through this market to get to that place.
So this is where they kept the water, a nice reservoir. Yeah, these steps are pretty steep.
Yeah.
And there's no headroom here, so you gotta be a penitent man and duck down very, very much so you don't get hit, or you don't hit the ceiling, the top of the arch. So this arch here was part of a big arch that was over the market.
It continues inside the monastery. So we know it was really a big arch.
Yeah. By putting this sign up, it shows that the person that lives here went to Mecca, and he's celebrating his participation there. So we're in the Muslim area,
Muslim quarter,
the Muslim quarter.
Jerusalem, doing the Stations of the Cross.
Okay, so Jesus was,
When Jesus was here,
it was Jewish.
the whole city was Jewish.
Yes.
Islam is 600 years later.
Yeah.
And Christianity is just going to begin.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Lot of history. So Jesus would be taking the cross down this road right now.
So station number 3 is where he fell. And station number 4 is where he met his mother. And again, those two are not in the book.
Troisième station, quatrième station.
Up is even more challenging.
Oh, yeah, up the hill. So Jesus is carrying the cross up the hill right now.
That helps Jesus to, she seems he's coming again, probably bleeding, sweating. And she take a piece of cloth and give him to wipe his face. And when she gets it back, she has...
The image of Jesus.
What was the woman's name? Icon is the image. Veronica. Veritas icon. The true image of Jesus.
And Veronica translates to icon?
Veritas, icon. Veritas is true. Icon. Veronica, it's the combination of both. It's like Verizon is Veritas Horizon. Sorry for using a company name comparing to this, but same concept. Verizon, the name of the company, is the combination of...
Jesus falls.
His mother second time is before. Now, during his time, this small arch is the gate of Jerusalem. And you will look at me and say, Mickey, this is not a gate, this is hardly half an hour. If you remember, one of the reasons I took you to see the street level of that time, during his time, this is a gate. The street level is much, much, much lower. So this is where he comes out of Jerusalem. Crucifixion and Roman crucifixion and Jewish burial is always done outside of the city. We don't do it inside the city. And today we will see this, the Church of the Holy Sepulcher in the city. So people said, how come it's in the city?
It wasn't in the
It
city
wasn't
then.
in the city. This was the gate. This was the...
And this is when Jesus falls the third time.
So he goes out of the city. They proclaim, this is Jesus, the King of the Jews. The Romans say he is possible for being the King of the Jews. So this is this station. And then the women of Jerusalem are standing up here. And every woman who mourned and wailed for him, Jesus turned and said to them, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep for yourself and for your children." Now, weep for your children is because within 14 years, the city will be destroyed. This gate will be destroyed. Everything will be destroyed. It was the rebels, and their temple was destroyed. So your children, they will be 40 when this will happen. They will suffer more than I am. The church was built 300 years after crucifixion, and it was built on the main corridor. You remember from Bet Shean, the big corridor? But this is the big corridor. Now you look, okay, this is not a corridor. This is hardly the ally of the small part of the corridor of Bet Shean. But the original corridor was from here all the way there. Then about 1,000 years after the corridor was established, the Crusaders were here and they want to rebuild the church. And they needed money. So how do you get money? You tax the people. It's hard to tax the people. It's easier to tax shops.
Yeah.
The queen, it's Melisenda, the queen of that time, said, okay, we have this huge corridor and only shops here. Let's build something here and we more than double the shops we have. So we'll get more money. So this, when we get to the story of the church, this, when I say corridor, it was really big.
So we're going upstairs to see the 9th station.
Women of Jerusalem 8, 9. And the rest of the stations will not have sculptures.
Okay.
Because all the rest will be within inside the Church of the Holy Sepulcher. So this is the third time he falls. See? From now on, we won't see any of those anymore because we go in the last 5 stations are within the station. There is the story of the church. And it starts here where we see the Coptic monastery, meaning you have your Catholic church back home and it's your Catholic church. And a few blocks away there is the Protestant church and the Baptist church and the Orthodox church. Here we have one church that has 5 denominations. This is a miracle by itself. A daily miracle of how they get along, and let's go and get to the church. And
So we are now going.
so this is the Coptic Church, and we'll pass it, and then the main most important part.
Take corridors. So we left the church, went into a courtyard, saw more cats.
This is when it comes to cats, he owns you. You don't own them.
Yeah.
It's not like a dog.
So he's learning too.
He's preparing to scratch me. You see, he's scratching the ground. 2,000 years ago, this is what we have. There is a quarry where they take the bricks to build the buildings, to build the temple, to build whatever they want to build. A guy by the name of Joseph, so again, popular name, Joseph of Ramatia. He owns a small cave here, which is a burial site outside of the city. And the city gate is somewhere here, and we saw coming out of the city gate and coming to this place. And here the church is built, and we'll see it is built on top of this kind of rock. And either because people were crucified here or because of the shape of the rock, it was called Golgotha. Golgotha in Hebrew, Gulgolet, skull. The cavalry, another word for it is another name for it is skull. And this was where the crucifixion place. Again, it's inside this, almost below this small dome, inside this window. Inside this window, this is where the crucifixion happened, and then we'll go in. And then they took him down, prepared him for burial, and buried him there. And soon we'll get there. They go up.
Okay, this is
City, where the cross was.
So this is where Jesus
With the hand,
this is where Jesus was crucified.
take off his last clothes out of him, and they play the lottery. Who
Yeah.
goes to get it
Yeah.
and resell it basically or use it. And the cross is here, and they put him on the cross, crucify him, and then
stood up the cross.
Holy God, holy mighty, holy Lord.
this is the original rock that was here, and the cross was on top. Take a moment, we can go in and
Pay our respects. We got some steep stairs going down here.
about the 9th hours, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lama azavtani. This is how it says in the Bible, which is translated in Hebrew, God, God, why have you forsaken me? At that moment, the curtain of the temple, half a mile from here, was torn into two from top bottom, and the earth shook and the rock split. And preparing to burial the same way Jewish knows how to prepare for burial. So they anoint him and cover him with those linens. And it's done not on this marble rock, but on a rock below it. The reason there is a marble rock here is that pilgrim came and 2,000 years they say, we want this. So they put the marble on top. So this is what they prepared him for the burial. And remember, Joseph of Arimathea told them, come, I have a place here. I will give it to you. And then it's Friday. Shabbat is starting in hours and you cannot bury on Shabbat. And up until today, if someone is passed away just before Shabbat, they will rush to bury him before the Shabbat, because especially in Jerusalem, you don't keep, if someone passed away, you don't keep the body overnight in Jerusalem. You have to bury them before the Shabbat, every night, every day before the night falls. So in Jerusalem, when people passed away, it's usually very quickly. You get a call.
Yeah, no.
come on. and in Israel in general, when someone passed away, usually the same day will be the burial. If today they are a bit more flexible. If the family is abroad, then they will wait. But in most families, same day. This is where they buried him. This is the holy tomb, the holy sepulcher. But much more important, this is the place where Jesus resurrected.
This is where Jesus was laid.
This is Catholic part of side of the church, and they have inside the whole complex, and again it's also a monastery. This chapel is called the Chapel of Mary, and there are actually two Mary, because as Mark says, when the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and the Solomon bought the spices so that they might go into anointed Jesus' body. As they entered the tomb, as they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. Oh, don't be alarmed, he said. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where he laid, and see the place where he laid. So, in here, there are people there, so when they go out, the wall used to be here, and then one of those changes, they break into the wall, and they found those small cave niches. And you can see there is a cave, and there are 3 different niches in there. And this is how they buried during this time. You put the body in one of those niches, and if it's your family,
This is the Greek portion?
the Orthodox Church, part of the church.
Okay. So we're now in the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem, of the Old Jerusalem.
The continuation of that corridor, in this part, Palestinians didn't have enough time to build more shops. So if you remember, it's the corridor, the walking part, the chariot part. This was also part of the corridor, the second walking part, the major street of Jerusalem, but not during Jesus' time, starting to be built 100 years after crucifixion, this corridor. So Jews from Europe, what we call Ashkenazi Jews, come in, decide, following a great rabbi, decide to build a big synagogue. They don't have enough money. They borrow from their Muslim neighbors. They start to build a synagogue. But then the rabbi wasn't young, and making this journey, passed away. And the community didn't manage to its finance as it should. And the Muslim came and said, you owe us money, 1 year, 2 years. After 19 years, they say, you don't pay us back. We destroy the synagogue. So it was in ruins. 160 years later, Jewish guy, not rabbi, but person, came with 2 of his friends, and they collected enough money to pay the debt, to pay the interest. So it's a grandchildren of those who borrow money. They paid the debt, they paid the interest, and they built this synagogue.
It's beautiful.
1948, the first thing the Jordanian who took over the old city, the first thing they did, destroyed this synagogue because it was a symbol. 67 we took over. We didn't immediately build it because it's already, the name is the Churva, the ruins. But about 10 years ago they decided to rebuild it.
So Mickey, we're on the dome of
We're
the
on the
Jewish-
dome of the Jewish synagogue,
and
looking at the dome of the Church of the Holy Sepulcher.
which one is that? That one's
It's the big one, the 2 ones. The big one is on top of the Holy Sepulcher, the tomb, and the smaller one, just on the right of it, with the bigger cross, is on top of the church, the Greek Orthodox Church. But it's all one big compound. And when we look into the right, we will see the Dome of the Rock,
and that's the Muslim church.
the Muslim mosque.
And now the rock.
Is the foundation rock, the cornerstone of the world, according to tradition. And above, on the far end, we see Mount Olive, where Jesus stayed. This is where he lived when he stayed overnight, when he was in Jerusalem, in Bethany.
Who did he stay with?
Lazarus family.
And,
Lazarus that
and where was he captured?
he was captured down below the Mount Olive, not far from what we hardly can see, the Russian church, below the Russian church, Gethsemane. And when he ascended to heaven, it was on the top of Mount Olive.
So there's the Russian church, and that's about where he was captured.
Gethsemane,
And then he ascended on the top Mount Olive.
the big tower that we see is one of the churches of Ascension. This is the Russian Orthodox Church.
Okay.
But we saw a Mosque of the Ascension, Russian Orthodox.
Well, this is the staircase going down. A lot of ring around the rosy going on. So this shows the city walls when?
3,000 years ago, 2,700 years ago until 2,500 years.
Pretty deep.
Really?
So when I told you at Tel, you remember the city is being destroyed, rebuilt.
Right. This is the result.
This is the result.
We're in Herod's Castle. Oh, look at that, Debbie. All over the place, like the merchandise mart. Oh, look at that, Debbie. Sound and waterfalls.
Oh, is that cool? That's not water. It's just a lake.
Oh, it's movie water.
Yeah. With sound.
So Mickey said a lot of the fun is the going down to the chairs. So they present this on the building like the merchandise here.
So where do you want to sit?
This looks like as good a spot as any.
ירושלים, בתוך אלוהים שמתיה וסביבותיה ארצות.
This is Jerusalem, which I have set in the center of the nations, the countries all around her.
How many times things were destroyed and put up? So this is how it looks without a video. Look at that wall, Herod's wall.
Yeah, we went into that.
Yeah.
And I thought, we'll go out that way.
You would think.
No, we didn't.